October 22nd, 1944, Fort Douglas, Utah. 425,000 German prisoners held across 500 American camps. Survival rate, 99%. Many gained weight. Some learned English. A few fell in love with the country that captured them. But here is the part that will destroy everything you think you know about World War II. A 27-year-old German nurse named Anna Vogel stepped off a military truck that morning. She had a pistol hidden in her coat. Not to fight. To kill herself before the Americans could touch her. Nazi radio had promised her torture, humiliation, a fate worse than death. Instead, an American nurse handed her a blanket and said 5 words that shattered her entire world. "You're safe here, Fräulein." What happened next would become one of the strangest, most powerful lessons of the entire war. Because the Americans were not fighting with bullets anymore. They were fighting with something far more dangerous. Kindness. 3 weeks earlier, October 1st, 1944, a field hospital near Aachen, Germany. Anna had not slept in 53 hours. "We need more morphine," she screamed across the tent. No one answered. There was no morphine. There had been no morphine for 6 days. A young soldier grabbed her wrist. He was maybe 19. Both his legs were gone below the knee. His eyes were wild with pain. "Please," he whispered. "Please make it stop." Anna looked at her hands. They were covered in his blood. She had nothing to give him, nothing except lies. "Soon," she said. "Help is coming soon." He died 40 minutes later. She held his hand until it went cold. Then she stood up, wiped her palms on her apron, and moved to the next patient. This was her life now. This was what the war had made her. Outside, American artillery thundered closer. The ground shook. Dust fell from the tent ceiling. Someone was crying in the corner. Someone was always crying. "They're 3 kilometers away," said Hauptmann Weber, the commanding officer. His face was gray. His hands trembled as he lit a cigarette. "Maybe 2. Anna did not look up from her work. "What do we do?" "We surrender." The word hung in the air like poison gas. Surrender. To the Americans. Anna's hand moved instinctively to her coat pocket. The pistol was still there. Small, cold, ready. She had heard the stories. Every German woman had heard the stories. American soldiers were criminals released from prisons. They did unspeakable things to captured women. Death was preferable. Death was merciful. "I won't let them take me alive," whispered Margaret, another nurse. She was 22. She had a photograph of her fiancé tucked into her boot. "I won't." Anna nodded slowly. "Neither will I." October 3rd, 1944. 0600 hours. The Americans came at dawn. Anna heard the trucks first, that low diesel rumble that meant the enemy was close. She stood with 42 other women in front of the ruined hospital tent. Some were crying. Some were praying. Most were silent, their faces blank with terror. The olive-green vehicles stopped 50 meters away. Soldiers poured out. They moved fast, efficient weapons ready. This is it, Anna thought. Her fingers closed around the pistol grip. This is where I die. A sergeant approached, tall, broad shoulders. The name Miller was stitched on his jacket. He held up one hand and shouted something in English. Anna did not understand the words, but she understood his tone. It was calm, almost gentle. Miller looked at the group of terrified women. He lowered his weapon. Then he did something that made absolutely no sense. He smiled. "Beruhig dich," he said in broken, terrible German. "You safe now." Anna did not move. Her hand was still on the pistol. Her heart was slamming against her ribs so hard she thought it might break through. Miller took a slow step forward, then another. He moved like someone approaching a wounded animal. Careful, patient. "Kind of often," he said. "No weapons." He pointed to himself, then to her, then made a lowering motion with his hands. "Bitte, please." Behind her, Marguerite started sobbing. "It's a trick! It's a trick! They want us to let our guard down." But Anna was watching Miller's eyes. They were brown, tired. There was no cruelty in them, no hunger, just exhaustion and something that looked almost like pity. She did not release the pistol, but she did not pull it either. "What happens now?" she asked in German. Miller clearly did not understand. He called over his shoulder. A moment later, another soldier appeared, younger, glasses. He spoke German with an American accent. "You will be treated as prisoners of war under the Geneva Convention," he said. "You will receive food, shelter, medical care. No one will hurt you. I give you my word." Geneva Convention. Anna had heard the term before, but never understood what it meant. "Words mean nothing," she said. "Your propaganda says one thing. Your actions will say another." The translator looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "You're right," he said. "So watch our actions and decide for yourself." The first 24 hours were the longest of Anna's life. Every sound made her flinch. Every approaching footstep made her reach for the pistol she no longer had. They had searched her bag during processing, found the weapon, confiscated it. She was defenseless now, completely at their mercy. And yet, the guards did not shout. They did not strike anyone. They moved through the prisoners, calmly checking names against lists, asking questions through translators, offering water and bread. Bread. Real bread. Anna had not tasted real bread in months. She held the small loaf in her hands like it was made of gold. The crust was firm. The inside was soft and white. She brought it to her nose and inhaled. "It's not poisoned." She looked up. Miller was standing nearby, watching her with that same tired smile. "How do I know?" she asked. He shrugged, reached over, tore off a piece of her bread, ate it. "Now you know." Anna stared at him. Then slowly she took a bite. The taste hit her like an electric shock. Warm, rich, alive. Tears sprang to her eyes before she could stop them. "Good?" Miller asked. She could not answer. She was crying too hard. October 5, 1944. Temporary holding facility. Anna sat on a wooden bench inside a converted barn. Straw on the ground. Tin cups of water on a table. 40 women packed into a space meant for 20. And still no beatings, no torture, no violations. "This doesn't make sense," Margaret whispered. She was sitting next to Anna, her arms wrapped around herself. "Why are they being nice? What do they want?" Anna shook her head. "I don't know. Maybe they're fattening us up, like cattle before slaughter." Maybe. But Anna was beginning to doubt it. She had watched the American soldiers for 2 days now. Watched how they treated each other. Watched how they treated the prisoners. There was a system here. Rules that everyone followed. Even the cruelest-looking guard still said, "Please," and "Thank you." It was insane. It was completely insane. That evening, a medic came through with a clipboard. Young, freckled. Couldn't have been more than 20. He spoke through a translator, asking each woman if she was injured. When he reached Anna, she lied. "I'm fine." "You're limping," he said. "I watched you walk in. Your right hip. What happened?" She hesitated. Back home, admitting injury meant being sent away. Being sent away meant disappearing. "A wall collapsed on me," she finally said. "During a bombing, 3 months ago." The medic frowned. 3 months and no treatment. There was no time, no supplies. He wrote something on his clipboard. Then he called to a guard. A moment later, someone brought over a folded cushion. Thin canvas stuffed with straw. "For sitting," the medic said, "until we can get you to a real doctor." Anna took the cushion. Her hands were shaking. "Why?" she asked. The medic looked confused. Why what? Why do you care I'm your enemy? He was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that Anna would remember for the rest of her life. You're not my enemy. You're my patient. There's a difference. October 12, 1944. Aboard a transport ship, Atlantic Ocean. Anna stood at the deck railing and watched Germany disappear into the gray mist. Behind her, somewhere in that ruined country, her mother was alone. Her brother was missing in action. Her father's bakery was a pile of rubble. And here she was, sailing toward America, eating 3 meals a day, sleeping on a real mattress. The guilt was suffocating. Beautiful, isn't it? She turned. Miller was standing a few feet away, staring at the ocean. What is? She asked. The horizon. When you're at sea, it goes on forever. No borders, no countries. Just water and sky. Anna turned back to the railing. I don't see beauty. I see distance. Distance from everything I love. Miller nodded slowly. I understand. I got a wife back home in Ohio, 2 kids. Haven't seen them in 18 months. Anna looked at him. For the first time, she saw him not as an enemy soldier, but as a man. A tired man far from home, just like her. Why are you telling me this? She asked. Because I want you to know something. He paused, lit a cigarette. This war took things from both of us, but it doesn't have to take our humanity. That's what we're trying to prove. That's why we treat you the way we do. And if you lose, we won't lose because of kindness. He exhaled smoke into the wind. We'll win because of it. October 22, 1944, Fort Douglas, Utah. The camp gate closed behind Anna with a metallic clang. She stood in the Utah sunshine, staring at neat rows of wooden barracks. Clean paths, a vegetable garden. Women walking freely within the fenced perimeter. This was prison. Welcome to your new home, said the translator. You'll receive your work assignment tomorrow. Today rest, eat, recover. Anna walked to her assigned barracks in a daze. Inside, the floor was swept clean. The bunks had mattresses. Each bed had a blanket and a pillow. She sat down slowly, clutching her straw cushion to her chest. The mattress springs creaked beneath her weight. And for the first time in 3 years, Anna Vogel did not feel afraid. She felt something far more terrifying. Hope. That night, she lay awake listening to the other women breathe. Some were crying softly. Some were whispering prayers. Outside, an American guard walked past his footsteps, steady and unhurried. Anna pulled out the small notebook she had carried since before the war, found a pencil stub in her pocket, and wrote 5 words that would haunt her for decades. They are breaking me, with kindness. She did not know it yet, but this was only the beginning. In the weeks ahead, she would receive news from Germany that would shatter her completely. She would learn what was really happening to her family. She would face a choice that no amount of bread or blankets could make easier. And she would discover that mercy, true mercy, sometimes hurts more than cruelty ever could. But that story belongs to part 2. In part 1, Anna Vogel arrived at Fort Douglas with a pistol meant for herself. She expected torture. She received bread. She expected humiliation. She received a cushion for her injured hip. She wrote 5 words in her notebook that haunted her. They are breaking me, with kindness. But kindness was about to become a weapon far more devastating than she ever imagined. November 1944. The first letters from Germany arrived at the camp, 312 envelopes. Thin paper covered in censor stamps and desperate handwriting. Inside those letters was the truth about what was happening to their homeland. And that truth would destroy Anna Vogel more completely than any bullet ever could. Because when your enemies feed you while your family starves, guilt becomes a poison that no medicine can cure. November 3, 1944. 07:30 hours, Fort Douglas mailroom. The line stretched across the entire compound. 300 German women stood in silence, their breath visible in the cold morning air. Some clutched rosaries. Others whispered prayers. Most just stared straight ahead, faces frozen with a mixture of hope and terror. Anna stood near the middle of the line. Her hands were shaking. She had not received any news from home in 4 months. 4 months of not knowing if her mother was alive. 4 months of wondering if her brother had survived the Eastern Front. Vogel Anna. She stepped forward. The clerk, a young American private with red hair and freckles, handed her a single envelope. Her mother's handwriting, shaky, uneven, nothing like the careful script Anna remembered from childhood. She walked back to her barracks in a daze, sat on her bunk, stared at the envelope for a full minute before she could open it. The letter was short, 47 words. Meine liebe Anna, the city is gone. Your father's bakery is rubble. Heinrich is missing. They say he fell near Cologne, but there is no body. Food is scarce. We eat potato peels and dandelion roots. But we are alive. Your loving mother. Anna read it 3 times. Then she read it again. Gone. Missing. Potato peels. She looked down at her breakfast tray. Oatmeal with milk. Bread with butter. An apple. Her family was eating weeds. And she was eating butter. The scream that came out of her did not sound human. Margaret found her 20 minutes later. Anna was on the floor between the bunks, her knees pulled to her chest, rocking back and forth. The letter was crumpled in her fist. Tears streamed down her face, but she made no sound. Anna. Margaret knelt beside her. Anna, what happened? What did it say? Anna could not answer. She thrust the letter toward Margaret and continued rocking. Margaret read it. Her face went pale. Oh, God. They're starving. Anna's voice was barely a whisper. My mother is eating weeds, and I had eggs for breakfast yesterday. Eggs, Margaret. When was the last time anyone in Germany had eggs? Margaret had no answer. Her own letter had brought similar news. Her fiancé was dead. Killed at Normandy 3 months ago. She had been wearing his photograph in her boot while he rotted in French soil. We shouldn't be here, Anna said. Her voice was rising now. We shouldn't be comfortable. We shouldn't be fed. Our families are dying, and we're sitting in warm barracks eating American food like pets. Like dogs, they're training to love them. Anna, don't. She slapped Margaret's hand away. Don't tell me it's not our fault. Don't tell me we should be grateful. I will not be grateful. I will not accept their kindness while my mother starves. She stood up. Her eyes were wild. She grabbed her breakfast tray from the small table and hurled it against the wall. The oatmeal splattered across the wooden boards. The apple rolled into the corner. The bread landed in a puddle of spilled milk. I won't eat, Anna said. I won't eat until my family can eat too. The hunger strike lasted 6 days. Anna was not alone. 17 other women joined her after receiving similar letters. They refused all food. They refused to work. They sat in their bunks and waited to suffer the way their families were suffering. The American guards did not understand. Why won't they eat? Private Collins asked Sergeant Miller on the 3rd day. The food is good, same food we eat. Miller shook his head slowly. It's not about the food, son. It's about guilt. Guilt for what? For surviving. For being comfortable while everyone they love is in hell. On the 4th day, Captain Morrison called Anna to his office. He was a stern man in his 50s. Gray hair, sharp eyes. He had fought in the First World War and understood Germans better than most Americans. Anna stood before his desk, her legs weak from hunger. Dark circles under her eyes. Cheekbones sharp against her pale skin. Sit down, Morrison said. I prefer to stand. That wasn't a request. His voice was hard. Sit. Down. She sat. Her hips screamed with pain. The old injury was flaring up again. Morrison studied her for a long moment. Then he spoke. "You received bad news from home." "Yes." "Your family is suffering." "Yes." "And you think that by starving yourself, you will somehow share their pain." Anna's jaw tightened. "You wouldn't understand." "Wouldn't I?" Morrison leaned forward. "I was at Belleau Wood in 1918. I watched my best friend bleed to death in my arms because we had no bandages. When I came home, my family had a feast waiting. Roast beef, apple pie, everything I had dreamed about for 2 years." He paused. "I couldn't eat a single bite." Anna looked up. For the first time, she saw something in his eyes that was not authority. It was pain. Old pain buried deep. "The guilt almost killed me," Morrison continued. "I lost 30 pounds, couldn't sleep, couldn't work. My wife thought I was going crazy. Maybe I was." He stood and walked to the window. "But one day a doctor told me something that saved my life. You want to know what it was?" Anna said nothing, but she was listening. "He said, your suffering does not reduce theirs. It only adds to the total suffering in the world. If you want to honor the dead, live well. If you want to help the living, stay strong enough to help them when you can." Silence. Morrison turned back to face her. "Your mother needs you alive, Fräulein Vogel. Your brother, if he still lives, needs you healthy. You cannot help them from a grave. And you cannot help them from a hospital bed either." Anna's eyes were burning. She blinked rapidly, refusing to cry. "Why do you care?" she whispered. "Why do any of you care what happens to us?" Morrison returned to his desk, sat down, folded his hands. "Because the opposite of war is not peace. It's civilization. And civilization means treating people with dignity, even when they are your enemies. Especially when they are your enemies." He pushed a small tray toward her. "Tea and crackers. Now eat. That's an order." Anna ate. Not because she wanted to, not because she had forgiven herself, but because Morrison's words had planted a seed that she could not ignore. Your suffering does not reduce theirs. She returned to her barracks and found Nurse Ellen waiting. "I heard you spoke with the captain." Ellen handed her a fresh cushion. The old one had worn thin. "How do you feel?" "Confused." Anna sat down slowly. The cushion helped, but the pain was still there. "You Americans make no sense to me." Ellen smiled. "We don't make sense to ourselves most of the time." "I am serious." Anna looked at her. "In Germany, we were taught that enemies are enemies. You destroy them or they destroy you. There is no middle ground, no mercy." "And you think mercy is weakness?" "I thought so. Now I don't know what to think." Ellen sat beside her on the bunk. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said something Anna would never forget. "When I was 12, my father hit me. Hard. Across the face. I had broken a window playing baseball." She paused. "My mother could have hit him back, could have screamed, could have left. Instead, she sat him down and asked him why he was really angry. Turned out he had lost his job that day. He was scared and ashamed. The window just gave him an excuse to explode." Anna listened, uncertain where this was going. "My mother taught me that day that anger is usually fear in disguise, and the best way to fight fear is not with more fear, it's with understanding." Ellen stood. "Your country taught you that enemies must be destroyed. We're trying to teach you something different, that enemies can become friends, but only if someone has the courage to be kind first." She left Anna alone with the cushion and the confusion and the strange, painful hope that was beginning to grow in her chest. December 1944. The war was turning. Every week brought news of German defeats. The Allies were pushing toward Berlin. The Wehrmacht was crumbling. In the camps, the German prisoners listened to radio broadcasts and watched their world collapse. Some grew bitter. They cursed the Americans and dreamed of revenge. Others, like Anna, began to change. She started working in the camp infirmary again, folding sheets, passing bandages, helping the nurses with their rounds. It was not much, but it was something. A way to be useful. A way to honor Morrison's words. Your suffering does not reduce theirs. She wrote letters to her mother, long letters describing the camp, the routines, the strange kindness of the American guards. She did not know if the letters would arrive. The postal system in Germany was collapsing along with everything else, but she wrote anyway. I am healthy, she wrote. I am learning English. The nurses here treat me well. I do not understand these people, Mama. But I am beginning to think that perhaps we were wrong about them. Perhaps we were wrong about many things. She sealed the envelope and handed it to the postal clerk, an American private with kind eyes. I'll make sure it gets out, he said. Can't promise it'll arrive, but I'll try. Thank you. He paused, looked at her. For what it's worth, my grandmother came from Bavaria. She always said Germans and Americans aren't so different, just people trying to get by. Anna nodded slowly. Perhaps she was right. Saab, February 1945. The infirmary. Anna was changing bandages on a patient when Clara, the translator, rushed in. They're announcing something on the radio. You need to hear this. The prisoners gathered around the small speaker in the common room. Static crackled. Then a voice. Dresden had been bombed. Firebombs. The entire city was burning. Estimates said 25,000 dead. Perhaps more. The room fell silent. Anna thought of her aunt who lived in Dresden. Her cousin's 2 children. Gone. Around her, women began to weep. Some collapsed. Some screamed. One woman tore at her own hair until guards restrained her. And in that moment of absolute horror, something strange happened. The American guards did not laugh. They did not celebrate. They lowered their heads and stood in silence. One young private, barely 19, was crying. Crying. For German dead. Anna watched him and felt something break inside her. Not her hope this time. Her hatred. It simply dissolved. She walked over to the young private. He looked at her with red eyes, embarrassed. Why are you crying? She asked softly. He shook his head. I don't know. It's just... Those were people. Women. Kids. And we... He couldn't finish. Anna reached out and touched his arm. You are not a monster, she said. And neither are we. That is what this war should have taught everyone. But it took me until now to learn it. She walked away before he could respond. That night she wrote in her notebook, Today I learned that mercy is not weakness. It is the hardest kind of strength. It requires you to see the enemy as human. And once you see them as human, you can never unsee it. April 1945. The end was coming. Hitler was dead. Berlin had fallen. The German surrender was days away. In the camps, the prisoners waited, some with fear, some with relief, all with uncertainty. What would happen now? Would they be sent home? Would there be trials? Would America's kindness continue, or had it all been a performance? Anna stood at the fence, watching the sun set over the Utah mountains. The sky was orange and purple. Beautiful. Peaceful. A lie considering what was happening across the ocean. Ellen found her there. We just got word, Ellen said. The war in Europe is officially over. Germany surrendered. Anna nodded. She had known it was coming. But hearing the words still hit her like a physical blow. What happens to us now? You'll be processed, eventually repatriated, sent home. Home. The word felt foreign. What home was left? Are you scared? Ellen asked. Anna turned to look at her, the American nurse who had given her cushions and kindness. who had treated her like a human being when the whole world was treating Germans like criminals. Yes, Anna admitted, but not of what you might think. What then? I am scared that when I go home they will ask me about America, about how I was treated, and when I tell them the truth they will call me a traitor. She paused. I am scared that the kindness you showed me will make me an enemy to my own people. Ellen was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached out and took Anna's hand. Then you'll have to be brave enough to tell the truth anyway. Because that's what kindness really costs. It costs you the comfort of hatred. It costs you the simplicity of enemies and friends. She squeezed Anna's fingers. But it gives you something more valuable. It gives you your humanity back. Anna looked at their joined hands, an American and a German. Former enemies. Perhaps future friends. Thank you, she whispered. For everything. Ellen smiled. Don't thank me yet. The hard part is just beginning. And she was right. Because Anna Vogel was about to go home to a country in ruins. A country filled with hungry, angry, broken people who wanted someone to blame. And when she tried to tell them about American mercy, about cushions and kindness and guards who cried for German dead, they would not believe her. They would call her a liar, a collaborator, a traitor, and Anna would have to decide what mattered more, belonging to a nation that had lost everything, or telling a truth that no one wanted to hear. In Part 1, Anna Vogel arrived at Fort Douglas expecting torture. She received kindness instead. In Part 2, letters from home shattered her with guilt. Her family starved while she ate butter. She tried to starve herself. Captain Morrison saved her with 5 words. Your suffering does not reduce theirs. Now the war was over. Germany had surrendered, and Anna Vogel was going home. But home was not what she remembered. May 1945. 47 million Europeans were displaced. Germany lay in ruins. 80% of Cologne was rubble. Food rations had dropped to 800 calories per day. People were eating rats' tree bark, anything they could find. And Anna was about to walk back into that hell, carrying something more dangerous than any weapon. The truth about American mercy. A truth that no one in Germany wanted to hear. May 12, 1945. Fort Douglas. Final processing. The women lined up outside the administration building. 312 of them. The same number that had arrived 18 months ago. But they were not the same women. Anna stood near the front clutching a small bag. Inside her notebook, her Bible, her mother's letters, and the cushion Ellen had given her. The cushion that had followed her through everything. Vogel Anna. She stepped forward. A clerk handed her discharge papers. You'll be transported to New York Harbor, he said. Ship leaves in 3 days. You'll arrive in Bremen approximately 2 weeks later. 2 weeks. Then home. She should have felt joy. Instead, she felt terror. Captain Morrison appeared beside her. He looked tired. The war had aged him 10 years in 2. Fräulein Vogel. He extended his hand. It's been educational. Anna shook it. Her grip was firm now, not the trembling handshake of a frightened prisoner. Captain, she paused. May I ask you something? Go ahead. Why did you save me that day in your office, when I was starving myself? You could have let me die, one less enemy to feed. Morrison was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, Because my grandmother was German, came over in 1890, made the best apple strudel in Ohio. He almost smiled. She taught me that people are not their governments. Governments start wars. People just get caught in them. Anna felt tears prick her eyes. She blinked them back. I will remember that. Good. He straightened. Now go home. And when people ask you what happened here, tell them the truth, even if they don't believe you. What if telling the truth makes me a traitor? Morrison looked at her with those sharp, tired eyes. Then be a traitor to lies. That's the only kind worth being. May 15, 1945, New York Harbor. The ship was called the USS General Buckner. It had carried American soldiers to war. Now it carried German prisoners home. Anna stood at the railing as the Statue of Liberty grew smaller behind them. She had never seen it up close. Only from the deck, a green figure holding a torch against the gray sky. "Beautiful, isn't it?" She turned. Margaret stood beside her, thinner than before, but alive. "I suppose." "You don't sound convinced." Anna shook her head. "I'm thinking about what waits for us. Germany is destroyed. Our families are starving. And we—" She gestured at herself. "We're healthy, fed, clean. That's a good thing." "Is it?" Anna turned to face her friend. "When we get home, they will look at us and see women who survived in comfort while they suffered. They will hate us for it." Margaret was silent. She knew Anna was right. "What will you tell them?" she finally asked. "About America. About how we were treated." Anna looked back at the shrinking statue. "The truth. They won't believe you. I know. They might call you a collaborator, a traitor. I know. Then why tell it?" Anna reached into her bag and pulled out her notebook. Worn, stained, filled with 2 years of observations. "Because someone has to. Because if we lie, if we pretend the Americans were monsters, then we learn nothing. The war ends, but the hatred continues. And in 20 years, our children will fight another war, believing the same lies we believed." She opened the notebook to a random page. Read her own handwriting. "They follow rules even for enemies. Maybe that is why they win." Margaret stared at the words. Then she reached out and squeezed Anna's hand. "You're braver than me." "No." Anna closed the notebook. "I'm just tired of being afraid." POWs, May 28, 1945, Bremen Harbor, Germany. The ship docked at dawn. Anna stepped onto the gangway and stopped. The smell hit her first. Smoke. Rot. Death. It hung over the harbor like a fog that would never lift. Then she saw the city, or what was left of it. Buildings reduced to skeletons, streets filled with rubble, people moving through the ruins like ghosts. Thin, hollow-eyed, dressed in rags. A child, maybe 6 years old, stood near the dock holding a tin cup. Her ribs were visible through her dress. "Bitte," she whispered. "Haben Sie Brot? Do you have bread?" Anna felt her heart crack. She reached into her bag and pulled out the last of her ship rations. A small packet of crackers. American crackers. The child grabbed them and ran before Anna could speak. "Welcome home," Margaret said bitterly. Anna said nothing. She was staring at a wall nearby. Someone had painted words on it in white letters. "We starved while you ate." Below it, "Smaller traders go home." Margaret saw it too. Her face went pale. "They already know," she whispered, "about the camps, about how we were treated." Anna nodded slowly. "Word travels fast." "What do we do?" Anna squared her shoulders, picked up her bag, started walking. "We go home anyway." June 3, 1945, Cologne. The train journey took 6 days. Normally, it would have taken 6 hours. But the tracks were destroyed. The bridges were gone. They had to walk half the distance. Anna's hip ached with every step. The old injury had never fully healed. She leaned on her cushion when she rested, pressing it against her side like a talisman. Finally, she saw it. Cologne. Or the grave where Cologne used to be. The cathedral still stood somehow. 2 towers reaching toward the sky like broken fingers. But everything around it was rubble. Mountains of brick and stone and twisted metal. The streets she had walked as a child were unrecognizable. She found her way to where her father's bakery had been. Nothing. Just a crater filled with debris. She stood there for a long time. Not crying. Not speaking. Just staring at the hole where her childhood had been. Then she heard a voice. "Anna." She turned. A woman stood 20 meters away. Thin, gray hair, hollow cheeks, dressed in a coat that was more patches than fabric. Anna didn't recognize her at first. Then she did. "Mama!" She ran. Her hip screamed with pain. She didn't care. She ran until she crashed into her mother's arms and held on like a drowning person holds a lifeline. "Mama! Mama! Mama!" Her mother was crying, shaking, so thin that Anna could feel every bone. "You're alive," her mother whispered. "Thank God! Thank God!" They held each other in the ruins of their city, two survivors in a sea of death. "I'm sorry," Anna said. Her voice was breaking. "I'm sorry I wasn't here. I'm sorry I couldn't help. I'm sorry." "Shh." Her mother pulled back and looked at her face, touched her cheek. "You're alive. That's all that matters. You're alive." Anna took a deep breath. This was the moment she had dreaded for months. "Mama, I need to tell you something. About America. About how they treated us." Her mother's eyes narrowed slightly. "I've heard stories. People say the American camps were comfortable." "They were." Silence. "We had food," Anna continued. "Medical care, blankets. They treated us according to something called the Geneva Convention. They gave us rights, even as prisoners, even as enemies." Her mother stared at her. For a long moment, Anna couldn't read her expression. Then her mother spoke. Her voice was cold. "You had food, while we ate grass." "Yes." "You had blankets, while we froze." "Yes." "And now you come back here healthy and fed to tell me how kind the Americans were." Anna felt the words like slaps, but she didn't look away. "Yes, Mama, because it's the truth." Her mother's face twisted. For a terrible second, Anna thought she would be struck, or screamed at, or disowned. Instead, her mother began to cry. Not with anger, with something else. Something that took Anna a moment to recognize. Relief. "They could have killed you," her mother whispered. "They could have done terrible things. That's what we were told. That's what everyone believed." "They didn't." "Why?" Her mother looked at her with desperate eyes. "Why would they be kind to our soldiers when our soldiers were—" She couldn't finish. Anna understood. She had asked the same question 1,000 times. "I don't know exactly," she said slowly. "But I think they believed that cruelty is a choice, and they chose differently." Her mother was silent for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely audible. "Your brother is alive." Anna's heart stopped. "What?" "Heinrich. He was captured by the British. They're releasing prisoners now. He sent word through the Red Cross. He's coming home." Anna felt her knees buckle. She grabbed her mother's arm to stay upright. "He's alive. He's alive." "Yes," her mother almost smiled. "Both my children survived, by the grace of God, and the mercy of our enemies." July 1945. The shelter. Anna's mother lived in a basement shelter with 12 other families. No electricity, no running water. Food came from Allied relief shipments and whatever could be scavenged from the ruins. Anna moved in. She slept on a concrete floor with her American cushion under her hip. The other families looked at her with suspicious eyes. "She was in America," they whispered. "She was fed while we starved." Some refused to speak to her. Others made comments loud enough for her to hear. Collaborator. Traitor. American pet. Anna ignored them. She had work to do. Every day she walked to the Allied relief station. The Americans had set up distribution centers across the city. Food, medicine, clothing. They gave it freely to anyone who needed it, including Germans. At first, many Germans refused to accept American help. Pride, shame, hatred. The same emotions Anna had felt in the camp. But hunger is stronger than pride. Slowly the lines grew longer. Mothers brought their children. Old men swallowed their dignity. Teenagers who had been ready to die for the fatherland now accepted American bread without meeting anyone's eyes. Anna became a translator. She stood between the American soldiers and the German civilians, turning words into bridges. This woman's son has tuberculosis. She needs medicine. This man lost his leg. He needs crutches. This family has 7 children. They need extra rations. The Americans listened. They helped. They followed their rules even now, even for a defeated enemy. And slowly, impossibly, things began to change. One afternoon, an old man stopped Anna outside the relief center. "You," he said. His voice was gruff. His face was scarred. "You were a prisoner in America." Anna braced herself for the accusation, the hatred, the word traitor. Instead, the old man asked a question. "Is it true, what they say, that the Americans treated you with respect?" Anna looked into his eyes, saw genuine curiosity, maybe even hope. "Yes," she said. "It's true." "Why?" "Because they believed it was right." The old man was quiet for a long moment. Then he shook his head slowly. "We believed many things," he said. "Most of them were lies." He looked at the American soldiers distributing food. "Maybe these people will teach us something different." He walked away before Anna could respond. But that night she wrote in her notebook, "Today an old man asked me about American mercy. He did not call me a traitor. He called me a witness. Perhaps that is what I am. A witness to a different way of being enemies." August 1945. Heinrich comes home. Anna was at the shelter when she heard the shout. "Anna! Anna!" She ran outside. A man stood in the rubble-strewn street, thin, bearded, missing 2 fingers on his left hand. But his eyes were the same, blue and fierce and alive. "Heinrich!" She crashed into him. He caught her, held her so tight she couldn't breathe. "You're here," he whispered. "You're really here. I'm here." They stood in the ruins of their city, 2 siblings who had survived the apocalypse. Later they sat in the shelter and talked. Heinrich told her about the Eastern Front, about the horrors he had seen, about the British POW camp where he had spent the last months of the war. "They treated us fairly," he admitted. "Not like we treated their prisoners, not like we treated—" He stopped, looked at his hands. Anna understood. She had heard about the camps, the real camps, the death camps, what Germany had done to the Jews, the Poles, the Russians, the Roma, atrocities that made everything else look like kindness. "We were on the wrong side," Heinrich said quietly. "Weren't we?" Anna nodded. "Yes, we were." "Then why did they spare us? The Americans, the British. Why didn't they just kill us all?" Anna thought about Morrison, about Ellen, about Miller and the bread and the cushion. "Because they wanted to prove something," she said. "They wanted to prove that civilization is not about who wins. It's about how you treat people when you have the power to destroy them." Heinrich was silent for a long time. "That's a dangerous idea," he finally said. "Yes, it is. It means we have to change, really change, not just surrender, but admit we were wrong." "Yes." He looked at her. His eyes were wet. "Can we do that? Can Germans do that?" Anna reached out and took his hand, the hand with the missing fingers, the hand that had held a rifle for 4 years. "I don't know," she said honestly, "but I'm going to try, and I hope you will too." September 1945. The Notebook. Anna began sharing her stories, at first just with her family, then with neighbors, then with anyone who would listen. She read from her notebook, the observations she had made, the lessons she had learned, the moments of kindness that had broken her and rebuilt her. "They gave me a cushion for my injured hip. They gave me penicillin when our own soldiers had none. They cried when Dresden burned. Some people called her a liar. Some called her a traitor. Some walked away before she finished speaking. But others listened. Others asked questions. Others began to wonder if maybe, just maybe, the enemy was not what they had been told. And slowly, story by story, conversation by conversation, something began to change. Not everyone, not overnight, but enough to plant a seed. The war was over. Germany was defeated. The world was in ruins. But Anna Vogel had learned something that no bomb could destroy and no army could defeat. Mercy is not weakness. It is the hardest kind of strength, and it survives long after the guns fall silent. But her story was not finished, not yet, because 50 years later, an old woman would return to Utah. She would stand before the gates of what used to be Fort Douglas, and she would finally understand what the Americans had really given her. Not just food, not just medicine, not just a cushion for her hip. Something far more valuable. The courage to become someone new. In Part 1, Anna Vogel arrived at Fort Douglas with a pistol meant for herself. She expected monsters. She found humans. In Part 2, letters from home shattered her with guilt. Her family starved while she ate butter. In Part 3, she returned to a ruined Germany and faced accusations of being a traitor for speaking the truth about American kindness. Now we reach the final chapter. The question everyone asks. What happened to Anna Vogel? What happened to the woman who was broken by mercy and rebuilt by truth? The answer involves a journey 50 years in the making. A return to Utah. A discovery that changed everything she thought she understood about her captivity. Because the Americans had not just been kind. They had been running the most successful psychological experiment in military history, and Anna Vogel was living proof that it worked. 1995. Cologne, Germany. Anna Vogel was 77 years old. Her hair was white now. Her hands trembled slightly when she poured her morning tea. The hip injury from 1944 still ached when the weather changed, but her mind was sharp. Her memory was clear, and her notebook sat on the shelf where it had been for 50 years. She had lived a full life after the war. In 1947, she married a British soldier named Thomas Wright, who had been part of the occupation forces. He had heard her stories about American captivity and believed every word. They moved to England for 10 years, then returned to Germany when things stabilized. She became a teacher. History naturally. She spent 32 years in classrooms telling young Germans about the war, not the propaganda version. The truth. The Americans could have treated us like animals, she would say. They chose not to. That choice is what separates civilization from barbarism. Some parents complained. Some administrators suggested she focus on other topics. She ignored them all. Thomas died in 1989. Heart attack. Quick. Merciful in its own way. After that, Anna lived alone in a small apartment filled with books and photographs. Her brother Heinrich visited every Sunday. He had married, had 3 children, become a carpenter. The missing fingers never stopped him from building beautiful furniture. Their mother had died in 1962, peacefully, in her sleep. The last thing she said to Anna was, "You were right to tell the truth, even when I didn't want to hear it." Anna kept those words close to her heart for the rest of her life. But something was missing. A question she had never been able to answer. Why? Why had the Americans been so kind? Was it really just the Geneva Convention? Just rules and regulations? Or was there something deeper? In 1995, she received a letter that would finally give her the answer. It was from a professor at the University of Utah. He was researching the history of Fort Douglas and had found her name in old records. He was writing a book about German POWs in America. Would she be willing to share her story? Anna stared at the letter for a long time. Then she picked up the phone. October 1995, Salt Lake City, Utah. Anna stepped off the plane and felt her heart racing. 50 years. 50 years since she had left this country as a broken prisoner. Now she was returning as a free woman, a witness, a survivor. Professor David Chen met her at the airport. He was young, maybe 35, with kind eyes and an eager smile. He shook her hand gently, aware of her age. "Mrs. Wright, thank you for coming. This means more than you know. Call me Anna." She looked around the terminal. Everything was different, modern, bright. "I hardly recognize anything. A lot has changed since 1945. Yes." She smiled faintly. "Including me." The drive to Fort Douglas took 40 minutes. Anna sat in silence watching the Utah landscape roll past. The mountains, the desert, the endless sky. It was beautiful in a way she had been too frightened to notice 50 years ago. When they arrived, she stood before the old gates for a long time. The barbed wire was gone. The guard towers had been converted into observation decks. The barracks were now part of a military museum. Plaques and monuments dotted the grounds. 371 camps, Professor Chen said, walking beside her. That's how many POW camps the United States operated during World War II. They held over 400,000 German prisoners, another 50,000 Italians, thousands of Japanese. Anna nodded slowly. She knew the numbers. The survival rate was 99.7%, Chen continued. Compare that to German camps where Allied POW mortality was between 3 and 5%, or Japanese camps where it exceeded 27%. "I know." Anna's voice was quiet. "I lived it. But do you know why the Americans treated you so well?" She stopped walking, turned to face him. "The Geneva Convention. That's part of it, but not the whole story." Chen pulled out a folder from his bag. "These are declassified documents from the War Department, released just 5 years ago. They show something most people don't know." Anna took the folder, opened it, began to read. Her hands started shaking. The documents told a story she had never imagined. In 1943, the United States War Department commissioned a secret study. The question, what is the most effective way to handle enemy prisoners? The traditional approach was harsh treatment. Break their will, punish them, make them suffer. This was how most countries had handled POWs throughout history. But a group of psychologists and military strategists proposed something radical. What if kindness was more effective than cruelty? What if treating prisoners with dignity turned them into allies instead of enemies? The theory was simple. Germany would lose the war. Everyone knew it by 1943. The question was, what would happen afterward? Would there be another war in 20 years, like after World War I? Or could Germany be transformed into a peaceful nation? The answer these strategists believed lay in the prisoners. If 400,000 Germans experienced American fairness firsthand, they would return home with a different story. They would tell their families, their neighbors, their children. They would become ambassadors for a different way of thinking. It was not just mercy, it was strategy. Brilliant, calculated, long-term strategy. Anna read the documents 3 times. Her eyes were wet. "We were an experiment," she whispered. "Yes," Chen said gently, "but not in the way you might think." They genuinely believed that kindness was the right thing to do. The strategy just gave them permission to do what they already wanted. Anna looked up at him. "You mean they were kind because they wanted to be, not just because orders told them to?" The orders helped, but you can't fake genuine compassion for 400,000 people across 300 camps. The guards, the nurses, the doctors, they had to believe in what they were doing, and most of them did. Anna thought about Miller, about Morrison, about Ellen. She thought about the cushion. "They changed us," she said slowly. "And by changing us, they changed Germany." "Exactly," Chen nodded. Studies show that former POWs were significantly more likely to support democracy after the war, more likely to participate in rebuilding, less likely to join extremist movements. The kindness you experienced wasn't just good morals. It was the foundation of modern Germany. Anna was silent for a long time. Then she laughed. It was a strange sound coming from a 77-year-old woman standing in a former prison camp, but it was genuine. "All these years," she said, "I thought I was just a prisoner who got lucky. I thought I was just one person with one story." "You were never just one person." Chen smiled. "You were part of the largest psychological operation in history, an operation that worked." Anna spent 3 days in Utah. She walked through the museum. She read the exhibits. She sat in a recreation of the barracks where she had slept 50 years ago. On the last day, she found something that stopped her heart. A display case near the exit. Inside, behind glass, were artifacts from the camp. Uniforms, photographs, letters, and a cushion. Small. Canvas. Stuffed with straw. The placard read, "Medical comfort item provided to injured prisoners circa 1944-1945. Donated by former camp nurse Ellen Moore, 1978. Anna pressed her hand against the glass. Ellen. Ellen who had given her the first cushion. Ellen who had said, "War ends faster when people stop hating." She was still alive. 92 years old. Living in a nursing home in California. Anna got her address from Professor Chen. 2 weeks later, she sat beside Ellen's bed, holding her hand. "You probably don't remember me," Anna said. Ellen's eyes were cloudy with age, but when she looked at Anna, something flickered. "German nurse," she said slowly. "Hip injury, refused to eat for a week." Anna laughed through her tears. "You remember." "I remember all of you." Ellen's voice was weak but steady. 300 women in my care. I remember every face." "Why?" Anna squeezed her hand. "Why did you do it? Why did you care so much about your enemies?" Ellen was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "Because my brother died at Normandy, June 6, 1944. He was 19 years old." Anna felt her breath catch. "I could have hated you all. Would have been easy, natural even." Ellen's eyes found Anna's. "But hate is heavy. It weighs you down. It makes you smaller." A tear rolled down her wrinkled cheek. "I decided I would rather carry kindness than hate, even for the people my brother died fighting." Anna could not speak. She just held Ellen's hand and cried. "Did it work?" Ellen asked after a long silence. "The kindness, did it change anything?" Anna thought about her life, her teaching, her students, her children, her grandchildren. "Yes," she said. "It changed everything." Ellen smiled. "Good." She closed her eyes. Then it was worth it. She died 3 months later. Anna attended the funeral. Anna Vogel lived until 2003. She was 85 years old. In her final years, she gave dozens of interviews. Her story was featured in documentaries, books, and academic studies. She became known as one of the most articulate witnesses to American POW treatment during World War II. Her notebook was donated to the German Historical Museum in Berlin. It remains on display to this day. Thousands of visitors read her words every year. They follow rules even for enemies. Maybe that is why they win. But her greatest legacy was not the notebook. It was the students she taught, the children she raised, the grandchildren who grew up hearing her stories. One of her granddaughters became a diplomat. She works for the United Nations, now negotiating peace treaties. She says her grandmother's stories taught her that enemies can become friends if someone has the courage to be kind first. One of her grandsons became a doctor. He works with Doctors Without Borders, treating wounded soldiers on both sides of conflicts. He carries a small cushion in his medical bag, a reminder of what kindness can do. The ripples spread outward, generation after generation, story after story, all because one American nurse gave a German prisoner a cushion for her injured hip. Here is the truth that this story teaches us. Wars are won with weapons. Peace is won with choices. The United States could have treated its German prisoners with cruelty. History would have understood. The Geneva Convention was the minimum requirement. No one would have blamed them for stopping there. Instead, they chose more. They chose cushions and kindness. They chose medical care and fair treatment. They chose to see enemies as human beings who could be changed. And it worked. The generation of Germans who experienced American POW camps returned home and helped build a different country. A democratic country. A peaceful country. A country that became one of America's closest allies. That transformation did not happen because of bombs or bullets. It happened because of bread and blankets. Because of nurses who smiled and guards who shared apples. Because of a military that understood something most militaries never learn. The way you treat your enemies determines what kind of peace you get. There is one final detail that almost no one knows. In 2001, researchers discovered a letter in the National Archives. It was written by Captain Morrison in December 1945, just after he returned home from Fort Douglas. The letter was addressed to his wife. It had never been sent. He must have forgotten it in his desk. In the letter, he described his work at the camp, the prisoners, the challenges, the small victories. And then, at the end, he wrote something remarkable. There was a German nurse named Anna, stubborn as a mule. She tried to starve herself because she felt guilty for being treated well. I told her something my father once told me. Your suffering does not reduce theirs. I don't know if she believed me. I don't know if any of them believed us. But I have to hope that someday one of these prisoners will go home and tell the truth. And maybe, just maybe, that truth will matter more than all the bullets we ever fired. That's why I do this work, Margaret. Not because orders tell me to. Because I believe that kindness is the only victory that lasts. Morrison died in 1967. He never knew that his words had come true. He never knew that Anna Vogel spent 32 years teaching German children about American kindness. He never knew that his one act of compassion in a Utah camp office rippled outward across 50 years and 3 generations. But it did. It all did. From a German nurse with a pistol hidden in her coat, to a grandmother who changed how her country remembered the war. From a prison camp in Utah to classrooms in Cologne, to a United Nations office in Geneva. From a simple canvas cushion to a legacy that still echoes today. Anna Vogel's story proves something that every generation needs to learn again. Victory is not about destroying your enemies. It is about transforming them. And the most powerful weapon in that transformation is not fear. It is kindness. 400,000 German prisoners experienced American mercy during World War II. They went home and raised families who believed in democracy. They built a nation that has been at peace for 80 years. That is not an accident. That is the result of a choice. A choice made by guards and nurses and officers who decided that treating enemies with dignity was more important than treating them with vengeance. If you know another story like this one, where kindness changed history, share it in the comments. The world needs to remember that mercy works. And if this story moved you, subscribe to see more forgotten histories that deserve to be told. Because in the end, Anna Vogel taught us the most important lesson of all. Wars end. Hatred fades. Empires rise and fall. But kindness echoes forever.